And so what we're talking about, although it concerns us directly, and the way we live now and what we do and what we want to do, it's very important to understand that this is a fundamental part of Islamic law. From the time of the beginning of Islam until well into the pre-colonial period, Muslims were people who were extremely intelligent in working with the cultures of other people. They were not culturally predatory. They did not impose foreign cultures upon other people, but rather the people that they lived with or that they ruled or that they lived among, they always studied the cultures of those people and they adopted from those cultures what was best. And this is a fundamental part of Islamic law. It's something that the Prophet taught us. One of the stories that we have from the life of the Prophet ﷺ was that one day in Medina, on the day of Eid, the day of the great festivity, there were Ethiopian Muslims who had come from Ethiopia, and they were so happy that they began to dance with their spears and their drums in the mosque of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this story is told to us in Bukhari and in other sources that Muslims regard to be highly authentic. So they were dancing in the mosque and they were using their swords and they were beating their drums. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, who didn't have that kind of a culture, he wanted to stop them. And the Prophet ﷺ intervened and he said, leave them alone. Let them play their games. And in one transmission he said, let them play their games so that the Jews and the Christians know that there is no difficulty in this religion. And in fact, he watched them and he took his wife Aisha, who wasn't able to see, and he put her up on his shoulders so that she could see and she could watch to her heart's content. So this is a very important precedent because it shows that he recognized the culture of the Ethiopians. And the fact that they had come into Islam, it did not mean that they had to become Arabs or that they had to give up their own cultural feelings and their own cultural expressions. In the early period of Islam, when the Muslims go into Byzantium and they fight with the Byzantines, we have the story of Amr ibn al-As, who was one of the great commanders there, as most of you know, and he's fighting against the Byzantines. And it's very, very difficult for him to do that. And so one of the companions comes up to him and he says that the Prophet said that the Rum, the Byzantines or the Westerners, would be the majority of mankind at the end of time. They would be the dominant people and the dominant culture at the end of time. And it's very interesting. I want to read to you a translation of what Amr said, because again, and this is in Bukhari and Muslim by the way, it shows us the fact that he is able to see the good that is in them. And he's able to see this, no doubt, because of the kind of training that he had received. And this is very important because his religion is not an identity religion. It's not one the nature of which is to otherize those that are not in his group. And so instead he can see the good that is in them. So when he hears this report, Amr responds and he said, if, 'If, 'then, 'what, 'you have related is true, 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 'what, 'you have rela then know that the Rum, and we can say the Westerners because it also means that, means specifically the Byzantines. But he said, if what you say is true, then the Westerners, the Europeans, if you like, he said, know that they have 4 excellent qualities. And this is really beautiful, that he is able to evaluate them and to see the good that they have. And of course, then he's able to see what's good in their culture as well. So he said, they are the most forbearing of all people in times of discord. They are the quickest of people to recover from calamity or from defeat. They are the most likely of people to renew the attack after they have retreated. And they are the best of people toward the poor and the orphan and the widow and the weak. So this is really amazing. So he's able to, he knows this about them and he sees that. And then Amr thought about that a little, and he said, and they have a 5th attribute, which is both beautiful and excellent. They are the best of people in checking the oppression of their kings. So this is a reflection of the attitudes that these first Muslims had. And when they went out into the world, they were able to understand the people that they met. They were able to live with them. They were able to borrow from them. They were able to give to them. And this became a fundamental part of Islamic law. In Islamic law, we have maqasid, we have overriding principles, the protection of life, the protection of intellect, the protection of the family, the protection of sound religion, the protection of the economy, the protection of honor. And we also have what we call maxims, which are called qawa'id. And the maxims are general statements of the law that sum up what the law is all about. We have thousands of them actually. But in Islamic law, we have 5 maxims which everyone accepts and which they regard also to be the very foundation of Islam. These are called al-qawa'id al-khams al-kulliyah, the 5 basic maxims. And the first of these is that things will be judged by their purposes. Al-umuru bi-maqasidiha. Things must be judged by their purposes. Like, what is the purpose of the things that we do? And we have to be sure that whatever we do, we never miss the purpose. We don't be tied up in formalities. And another one is certainty will not be removed by doubt. Al-yaqinu la yazulu bi-shak. And this is a principle of the intellect, that what we know for sure, we are not going to allow doubts to remove that. If we know something to be true, like for example, the excellence of your brother or your sister, then you're not going to allow a rumor to change your attitude towards them. We would have to have proof that is strong, and only certainty can remove the certainty. And then we say also, ad-darar yuzal, that harm must be removed. Harm will never be regarded as normative. So a woman is not supposed to suffer through an abusive marriage. That's harm. And that harm has to be removed. And this would pertain to so many other types of harm. And we say also, al-mashaqqatu tajlibu at-taysir, that difficulty will bring facilitation. It is not the purpose of Islamic law to make your life difficult. And so wherever there is unnecessary difficulty, then the law will facilitate that. It will change, it will make it possible for you to breathe and to live. These are 4 of those maxims. And then there is a 5th maxim, which again is agreed on by all Muslim scholars. and that is the one we want to talk about tonight. And it is al-'ada muhakkama. Al-'adatu muhakkama. That good cultural convention has the power of law. Good cultural convention has the power of law. And that means that wherever we go, wherever we are, we meet with different cultures. We meet with different peoples. And just like Amr was able to look at his enemy, the Byzantines, and to say, but they have 5 excellent qualities. So we also must do that. And we're not talking about our enemies, we're talking about the people that we live among as neighbors. And you must be able to see that this is good, this is excellent, this is beautiful, and whatever is good, you must accept. And we have rules for that. So we don't give up our principles, we don't give up our truths, but the other things, which are the beautiful aspects of those cultures, these we have to honor. And in fact, we regard them to have the power of law. And I'm going to read to you some of the texts of our juris that pertain to that. But because of this cultural sensitivity and this intrinsic honor of other people, Islam was not culturally predatory. It was not a predator. It did not want to destroy the culture of any people that it ruled or that it spread among or that it visited. And it did not want to force them to be Arabs or to be Turks or to be anything else. This is a truth of Islamic history, and it sounds to us very strange today, doesn't it? Because in recent decades, we've had the development of culturally predatory expressions of Islam. And these have no place in our tradition, and they are extremely harmful to us and to others. And for this reason, it's been said that when Islam spread in the world, it was like a crystal clear river. And a crystal clear river has no color, but it takes on the color of the bedrock that it flows over. So if the bedrock is green, if it were emerald, then the river looks green. If the bedrock is sandy, like the Niger River, then the river looks sandy. And if it's another color, it will take on that color. And for this reason, then when Islam was in China, and it still is in China, it looked Chinese, but it also looked like Islam. And when it was in Spain and Portugal, it looked Iberian. And it developed the Iberian ethos. And when it was in the Ottoman Empire, for example, it took on the characteristics of the overwhelmingly Armenian and Greek cultures that were there before. And this is the way Muslims did everywhere that they went. And it affected not just their architecture, it affected their food, their dress, and so forth. And again, so this way, as some scholars have said, Islam was able to spread its peacock's tail from east to west. One tail, just like one river. It's the same river, it's the same water, but the tail looks different in every place. And before we continue, I just want to show you a few slides. And I put these together, an assistant of mine put them together, and we did it very quickly, and we could have thousands of slides actually. There are many things that I've forgotten, but let's take a look at these. What is that? That's Russia, isn't it? And couldn't you say that that's the logo of Russia?
I think it's a mosque.
No? Oh, you jumped the gun. Okay, but this is, of course, St. Basil's Basilica in Red Square. And doesn't it look funny? I mean, I've always noticed, like, it's really funky. And what is the background of this? Does anybody know? Our brother said it's a mosque. And actually, everything in it is a mosque except for the very top. That is something that Tsar Ivan Grozny, Ivan the Terrible, that's what he built. Okay, but the rest of it is all the remnants of a great mosque. And that great mosque is the great mosque of Kazan. Kazan is a beautiful city in the middle Volga. And the Volga River was under Muslim control and Muslim habitation for over 300 years. And the dominant ethnic group that was in the Volga were the Tatars, who were a Turkic people, speak a language very close to Turkish. And again, we don't know what the Tatar mosques look like. We know what their little mosques look like. And their little mosques looked like Russian Orthodox churches. They imitated Russian Orthodox churches. I've seen them myself. But Ivan the Terrible, Grozny, he destroyed all of the Jama'ah. And he forced the Tatars to become Muslims, to become Christians. And in fact, Catherine the Great, she would allow them to be Muslims again. And it's interesting that most of them went back to Islam. But Ivan the Terrible, when he destroyed Kazan, he said, take their mosque and take it apart. And then take it by bull cart, oxen cart to Moscow, which is not really far away. And then build me a basilica. And he had Tatar architects do that. They were the best architects. So this was built by Tatars under his command. But it's very important because all the bricks, all of the designs, all the tiles, that was the great mosque of Kazan. What did it look like? I don't know. I can imagine what it looked like, but I don't know. But why would I bring this up? Because of the fact that these Tatars built something that was so beautiful in Russian eyes that Ivan Grozny wanted to make this his basilica. And this has become like the logo of Russia. So there's something about this, maybe we can say this without being overly romantic, that pleases the Russian soul. Okay, so it is in harmony with the Russian soul. And this is the way we were. This is the people that this is what we wanted to do. We don't want to offend the people. We want to honor the people that we live among. I mentioned the story of this mosque, and those of us who are Muslims, maybe this makes us feel bad. And I have to tell you the story because I went to Kazan, and I met the young imam there. He was a beautiful man. Unfortunately, he's not alive anymore. He had a short life. But he took me through a museum. He showed me many things. And I said to him, tell me the truth. Is it true that St. Basil's Basilica is actually from the Mosque of Kazan? And he said to me, we don't like to talk about this. He said, we don't like to talk about this. And I said, why? And he said, what is the value of bricks and tiles? Let them take the bricks and the tiles. We want to be friends with the Russians. We want to be neighbors with the Russians. So forget about that. And I told him that this is one of the biggest words of wisdom I've ever heard. Because when we study the past, always we encounter in the past things that are tragic. On all sides. And we never want to be people of revenge. We never want to be people who want to get back. God has wisdom in what He did. But the reason why I wanted to show you this is because of the fact that it shows this cultural genius And this should be you. This was the way we were.